this is a webinar, so you can only see me and you can't talk or show. So you don't have to worry about muting your mic or anything. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start. If anyone comes, well, okay. So I'm just gonna start. Just give me a second. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, so okay, so welcome guys. Today is our third class of Greek and Roman mythology, and today we're going to talk about the underworld. So today's agenda is, first of all, we're going to talk about where and what the underworld is. I'm sure as we talked about it in the first class, you kind of know what it is, but we're just going to go a little bit more precise. And then we're going to talk about the important rivers in the underworld, the different regions in the underworld, because there are different regions and like where the souls go and that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to talk about 4 myths about the underworld, and like the other 2 classes, we're going to do a Kahoot. So what is the underworld? So the underworld, like the definition, the general definition is the residing place for the souls of the dead, either they're good or bad. So a misconception would be that the underworld or hell is where all the bad souls go. But in Greek and Roman mythology, it doesn't matter if you were a good person or you were a bad person in your mortal life, you still go to the underworld, but you just go to a different place or a different section of the underworld that we're going to talk about later in the presentation. And what it's like. The underworld is like a dark and cold place under the surface of the earth. And like during the first class, we talked about this, the earth is Gaia. So I'm just gonna continue the next slide. So the 5 infernal rivers. Each five of the rivers has a unique function in how the underworld works, and a unique character named to reflect an emotion or a god associated with death. So each of the 5 rivers we're going to talk about will have a certain like emotion or like sentiment attached to it. So the first, we're going to talk about the 3 most important ones, which are the Styx, the Lethe, and the Archeron. And then we're going to talk about, the other 2, which are the Phlegeton and the Kositis. So the Styx. The Styx is the river of hatred. But as I said earlier, every river is associated with a different emotion. So the Styx is associated with hatred. And Styx means hatred or abhor in Greek. So that's why it's associated with this kind of emotion. And so I forgot to write it in my presentation, but and in the Styx, there's Sharon. Sharon is like a like the person right over here. He's like the one in the boat, and when the souls come to hell or the underworld, he's the one who passes, who like makes them pass from the land of the living to the land of the dead. So the passage from the earth to the underworld has a cost. The cost is 1 gold coin, and that's why in ancient Greek and ancient Roman cultures, when someone died, they would always put a gold coin in their mouth to make sure that they had money to cross the Styx. And so the sentence, if you didn't have that 1 gold coin, you'd have to roam the shore of the river Kositis, which we're going to talk about later, for 100 years. And there's a saying in Greek mythology and Roman mythology is to take an oath on the Styx. To take an oath on the Styx means to take an irrevocable oath, which irrevocable means that you cannot break it. And so in their culture, if you broke your oath that you swore on the Styx, then you would have some kind of consequence. Next, we're going to talk about the Lethe, and the Lethe is the river of oblivion and forgetfulness. So upon arriving to the underworld, the dead have to drink from it to forget their mortal life. So, for example, if you just arrive to the underworld, you pass from the Styx, and then you have to drink from the Lethe. The Lethe is also the name of the goddess of forgetfulness, who was the daughter of Eris. She watches over the river Lethe. So the third one we're going to talk about is the Archeron. The Archeron is an important river in the Greek mythology and Roman mythology, but there's nothing specific that like we know about it. But the Archeron is the river of woe or misery. And there's often a lot of demons there. So you can see it in this picture. And then we have the Phlegethon. The Phlegethon is the river of fire. So it is said to travel to the depth of the underworld where land is filled with fire, specifically the flames of funeral pyres. So as you can see here, the Phlegethon has like the water in the river is like burning, which is kind of impossible, but that's what happens in Greek and Roman mythology. And the Phlegethon also leads to the Tartarus. Okay, so the last river we're going to talk about is the Kositis. The Kositis is the river of wailing. So a river of cries and lamentation. The river in the underworld, on the banks of which the dead could not pay Sharon, wandered for 100 years. It flowed into the Archeron. So right here you would see these souls probably didn't have that one gold coin, which is why, they are wandering on the Kositis. So this is like a map of the underworld. There's going to be another one, but this one is mostly about the 5 rivers. So right over here on the left, sorry, there's a lot of background noise. This is the Styx, and which is the river of hatred. And then we have the Lethe right over here, which is the river of oblivion. And then the Kositis is over here, that is the river of wailing. And then we have the Phlegethon, which is the river of fire. And over here is the Archeron. The Archeron is the river of like pain, also the river of woe. And Sharon is right over here, because over here is the land of the living. And if you cross the Styx over here is the underworld. So next we're going to talk about the different regions of the underworld. There are 3 main regions of the underworld we're going to talk about today. The first one is the Asphodel Fields. The Asphodel Fields is the place most dead people would go to. Here, the dead would become shades, shadowy versions of their personalities when they were still alive. So that's where most of the people go. But for the Elysian Fields, the part of the underworld reserved to those who led heroically and exceptionally good lives while on Earth. The place was described as a restful, peaceful, blissful abode for souls. So heroes, demigods that did good things would go to the Elysian Fields. And the last part is the Tartarus. The Tartarus is the place in Hades reserved for evil people, a place filled with punishment and suffering. So, like I said earlier, only the bad souls go to the Tartarus. All souls go to the underworld, but only the bad souls go to the Tartarus. And right over here, there's a picture, there's a map of the underworld. So like before there's Styx, the Archeron, the Kositis, the Phlegethon, and the Lethe. Over here is the prison of Tartarus, which is Tartarus. Over here is the Elysian fields where the heroes rested. And it's not on the map, but the Elysian fields normally would be right over here. Okay, so on to the next. We're going to talk about the three judges. The three judges are three people who decide where you go after, like which section of the underworld you would go to when you arrive there. So the first one is Minos. Minos is the judge who made the final vote. Rhadamanthus is the judge of the men of Asia and the lord of the Elysium. Asia and Elysium, even though they are parts of like the earth, they are also like minor parts of the underworld. And then finally we have the Ixion is the guardian of the keys of the underworld and the judge of the men in Europe, which is also like a minor place in the underworld. Then I know we talked about this in the first class, but this is just like a reminder. So the Cerberus. The Cerberus is a multi-headed dog that guards the gates of the underworld to prevent the dead from leaving and from unwanted people to go in the underworld. He was the offspring of the monsters Echidna and Typhon. We also talked about them in the first class. So Echidna is a woman with a woman body and a tail, like the legs. Her legs would be like a snake. And Typhon was the male version of Echidna. Okay, and was usually described as having 3 heads, a serpent for a tail, and snakes protruding from multiple parts of his body. So over here, we can see that Cerberus is guarding the entrance to the underworld, and only souls can go in. No souls or nobody can go out or in if they weren't allowed. And this is Hades with the Cerberus. So the first myth that we're going to talk about today is Sisyphus. Sisyphus is one of the 3 most important myths of the underworld. So in the underworld, there are 3 like people. They had like the most cruel, most cruel and difficult like punishment to have, and we're gonna see these 3 myths today. So first, we're gonna talk about Sisyphus. Like last time, there will be a video, so I'm gonna turn on the sound.
Whether it's being chained to a burning wheel, turned into a spider, or having an eagle eat one's liver, Greek mythology is filled with stories of the gods inflicting gruesome horrors on mortals who angered them. Yet one of their most famous punishments is not remembered for its outrageous cruelty, but for its disturbing familiarity. Sisyphus was the first king of Ephyra, now known as Corinth. Although a clever ruler who made his city prosperous, he was also a devious tyrant who seduced his niece and killed visitors to show off his power. This violation of the sacred hospitality tradition greatly angered the gods. But Sisyphus may still have avoided punishment if it hadn't been for his reckless confidence. The trouble began when Zeus kidnapped the nymph Aegina, carrying her away in the form of a massive eagle. Aegina's father, the river god Sisyphus, pursued their trail to Ephyra, where he encountered Sisyphus. In exchange for the god making a spring inside the city, the king told Sisyphus which way Zeus had taken the girl. When Zeus found out, he was so furious that he ordered Thanatos, or death, to chain Sisyphus in the underworld, so he couldn't cause any more problems. But Sisyphus lived up to his crafty reputation. As he was about to be imprisoned, the king asked Thanatos to show him how the chains worked. and quickly bound him instead before escaping back among the living. With Thanatos trapped, no one could die, and the world was thrown into chaos. Things only returned to normal when the god of war, Ares, upset that battles were no longer fun, freed Thanatos from his chains. Sisyphus knew his reckoning was at hand, but he had another trick up his sleeve. Before dying, he asked his wife, Merope, to throw his body in the public square, from where it eventually washed up on the shores of the river Styx. Now,
Somebody said I'm frozen. Can everybody see the video or can you not see? Okay, you can see. Okay, that's good.
among the dead, Sisyphus approached Persephone, queen of the underworld, and complained that his wife had disrespected him by not giving him a proper burial. Persephone granted him permission to go back to the land of living and punish Merope on the condition that he would return when he was done. Of course, Sisyphus refused to keep his promise, now having twice escaped death by tricking the gods. There wouldn't be a third time, as the messenger Hermes dragged Sisyphus back to Hades. The king had thought he was more clever than the gods, but Zeus would have the last laugh. Sisyphus's punishment was a straightforward task, rolling a massive boulder up a hill. But just as he approached the top, the rock would roll all the way back down, forcing him to start over and over and over for all eternity. Historians have suggested that the tale of Sisyphus may stem from ancient myths about the rising and setting sun or other natural cycles. But the vivid image of someone condemned to endlessly repeat a futile task has resonated as an allegory about the human condition. In his classic essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, existentialist philosopher Albert Camus compared the punishment to humanity's futile search for meaning and truth in a meaningless and indifferent universe. Instead of despairing, Camus imagined Sisyphus defiantly meeting his fate as he walks down the hill to begin rolling the rock again. And even if the daily struggles of our lives sometimes seem equally repetitive,
The last part is not important. We're just going to talk about the myth. So, does anybody have any questions about the myth about Sisyphus? Anybody have any questions? Carol said, Sisyphus kind of looks fat in the video. Well, first of all, Sisyphus is a king, so he's pretty wealthy. He eats pretty well. That may be one of the reasons. But it's just like an animation. It depends. Anybody has any questions? Any comments about the video? Can we hear the end? Okay, sure. If you really want to hear the end, I could do that too. Yeah. Just give me a second.
and absurd, we still give them significance and value by embracing them as our own. For more literary takes on defiance in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, we highly recommend Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's chilling first-hand account of life in the Auschwitz concentration camp. You can download a free audio.
So that was the end. Somebody has another question. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go back to the presentation. So that was the first like cruel punishment that is very famous in Greek and Roman mythology. So the second one we're going to talk about is Ixion. Oh, somebody has it. I think your video is off. Can you not see me? Can you see my screen at least? Okay, that's okay. Okay, so someone has a question. Okay, so we're going to talk about Ixion. Ixion is the son of Phlegyos, the king of Lapith in Thessaly. So he murdered his father-in-law and could find no one to purify him until Zeus did. So and admitted him as a guest to Olympus. So what that means is that um, a lot of people in Greek and Roman mythology, they get purified so that they can go to either the field of Asphodel or the Elysian fields, so that they could go to somewhere good and not the Tartarus. So that's why people would get purified, kind of like in Catholic religions. But this is what happens in Greek and Roman mythology, or Greek and Roman culture. Yeah. So he murdered his father-in-law, and he was worried that he wouldn't get purified by others. So he asked Zeus to purify him, and Zeus somehow accepted and admitted him as a guest to the Olympus. So Ixion abused his pardon by trying to seduce Zeus's wife Hera. Zeus substituted her for a cloud, by which Ixion became the father of Cerberus, who fathered the centaurs. So I know a lot of you know what a centaur is, but just to make a quick reminder, a centaur is right over here at the bottom right. There's a picture over here. It's a man or a woman. Their upper body is the body of a human, and their lower body is the body of a horse. So Ixion, so how Zeus punished Ixion was he was attached to a winged fiery wheel that was bound to spin for all eternity, which means that he was attached with snakes to a wheel that was on fire, and a devil, one of the devil, like a devilish creature, would turn that wheel for eternity. So you can see right over here, or the picture over here. So there are snakes that attached him to a wheel, and that wheel was turning forever. So the next one we're going to talk about is Tantalus. Tantalus is the third most important myth that we're going to talk about today. So Tantalus, for exempting to serve his own son at a feast with the gods, he was punished by Zeus to forever go thirsty and hungry. So Tantalus wanted to feel the power, feel the immortality of the gods. So when he was invited to feast with the gods, he wanted to try the nectar, which is the nectar is something that the gods drink to be immortal, and he wanted to serve his own son at the feast. So Tantalus, completing the most unfortunate trio in Hades, was made to stand in a pool of water, but never be able to drink from it and quench his insatiable thirst, as it drains whenever he bends down to drink. As an added frustration, he was positioned below a tree, but can never quite grasp the succulent fruit that hangs from its bones. So which means that he was in a pool of water. Every time he bent down or went down to go drink from the pool of water, the river, the river would the water would go down, there would be no water anymore. And when he tried to went up and reach for the fruits, the branch of the tree would go up, so he couldn't grasp anything. So that's why we say that he couldn't eat or drink. So that was his cruel punishment. Okay, so and then we're going to talk about the last myth we're going to talk about. This is a picture about the three unfortunate trio. So this is Tantalus, because we just talked about it. So this is the river he stands in, and this is the tree. This is Sisyphus. Sisyphus was the one who had to carry a boulder up a mountain and never get there. And he had to restart for all eternity. And this is Ixion. He's the one who was attached to a fiery wheel that would turn eternally. So all of these are punishment that would last forever. Okay, so the last myth we're going to talk about today is the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. So this is another video. Some of these myths are kind of like complicated to explain. That's why I find videos for you guys to try to explain to them better.
It was the perfect wedding.
If nobody can hear it, just type it in the chat so I can know, or you can't see it, so just type it in the chat.
The guests thought. The groom was Orpheus, the greatest of all poets and musicians. The bride, Eurydice, a wood nymph. Anyone could tell the couple was truly and deeply in love. Suddenly, Eurydice stumbled, then fell to the ground. By the time Orpheus reached her side, she was dead, and the snake that had bitten her was slithering away through the grass. Following Eurydice's funeral, Orpheus was overcome with a grief the human world could not contain, and so he decided he would journey to the land of the dead, a place from which no living creature had ever returned, to rescue his beloved. When Orpheus reached the gates of the underworld, he began to strum his lyre. The music was so beautiful that Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guards the dead, lay down as Orpheus passed. Charon, the fairy captain who charged dead souls to cross the river Styx, was so moved by the music that he brought Orpheus across free of charge. When Orpheus entered the palace of Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the dead, he began to sing. He sang of his love for Eurydice and said she had been taken away too soon. The day would come when she, like all living creatures, dwelled in the land of the dead for all eternity. So couldn't Hades grant her just a few more years on Earth? In the moment after Orpheus finished, all hell stood still. Sisyphus no longer rolled his rock up the hill. Tantalus did not reach for the water he would never be allowed to drink. Even the Furies, the demonic goddesses of vengeance, wept. Hades and Persephone granted Orpheus's plea, but on one condition. As he climbed back out of the underworld, he must not turn around to see if Eurydice was following behind him. If he did, she would return to the land of the dead forever. Orpheus began to climb. With each step, he worried more and more about whether Eurydice was behind him. He heard nothing. Where were her footsteps? Finally, just before he stepped out of the underworld and into the bright light of day, he gave in to temptation. Orpheus tried to return to the underworld, but was refused entry. Separated from Eurydice, Orpheus swore never to love another woman again. Instead, he sat in a grove of trees and sang songs of lovers. There was Ganymede, the beautiful boy who Zeus made drink-bearer to the gods. There was Myrrha, who loved her father and was punished for it. And Pygmalion, who sculpted his ideal woman out of ivory, then prayed to Venus until she came to life. And there was Venus herself, whose beautiful Adonis was killed by a wild boar. It was as if Orpheus's own love and loss had allowed him to see into the hearts of gods and people everywhere. For some, however, poetry was not enough. A group of wild women called the Maenads could not bear the thought that a poet who sang so beautifully of love would not love them. Their jealousy drove them to a frenzy, and they destroyed poor Orpheus. The birds, nature's singers, mourned Orpheus, as did the rivers, who made music as they babbled. The world had lost two great souls. Orpheus and Eurydice had loved each other so deeply that when they were separated, Orpheus had understood the pain and joys of lovers everywhere, and a new art form, the love poem, was born.
While the world wept, Orpheus found peace and his other half in the underworld. There, to this day, he walks with Eurydice along the banks of the river Styx. Sometimes they stroll side by side. Sometimes she is in front, and sometimes he takes the lead, turning to look back at her as often as he likes. TED-Ed is a nonprofit. If you value our work, please consider supporting it on patreon.com/TEDEd.
So that is the myth about Orpheus and Eurydice. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions? It can also be a comment. You can talk, you can say what you feel about the myth. It can be about any myth, really. How you feel about the punishments, how you feel about how Sisyphus, Ixion, Tantalus, what they did, why they did anything, what they did was wrong. Maybe you understand why. Okay, so Annabelle has a question. You can just type it in the chat and I'll see if I can answer it. Anybody have any questions? What is the myth they are trying to tell through? Okay, so over here, well, sometimes like the myth tries to tell something. That's not always the case, but I know for sure that the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice is to have trust. So trust is a big thing in life. In this myth, trust is about how you do something for someone, and that someone does something for you in return. But sometimes you have to trust that person, even though you might not have faith in them. So you just have to trust and hope that gets you somewhere sometimes. Okay, so Annabelle says, what did Hades make Orpheus why did never look behind his shoulder for Eurydice? I'm not sure why, but that was his only condition. I think that he thought he knew that Orpheus would have the temptation to look behind to see if Hades actually let Eurydice go and made her walk behind him. That may be one of the reasons, but I'm not very sure. If you want, it is possible for me to search that up and I'll see if I can answer you next class. Yeah, that's the same question. Okay, so if nobody has any other questions, we can go ahead with the Kahoot. But if anybody has any question, you can ask. I'm just gonna wait maybe 10 seconds if you need to type your question into the chat. Okay, no questions. So we're gonna go ahead with the Kahoot. So like last class and the class before, you just go to kahoot.it on your browser, enter the game pin that will be on my shared screen very shortly, and enter your nickname and wait for the game to begin. So that's kahoot.it. I'm just gonna go get the game pin for you guys. Sorry, don't know why it won't work. Just give me a second. Okay, yeah, that's good. Also going to make you show the questions. So the game pin is 716647. That's 716647. Anybody else want to join the Kahoot, but maybe not know how? Sorry, blocking. Does anybody not know how to enter the Kahoot? No questions? You're gonna wait one more minute. Wait, there's someone in the chat. Yeah, Annabelle said she read Percy Jackson like a million times. Yeah, Annabelle, wait, were you the one that said, yeah, you're new? So in the first class, I showed a scene about the movie Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and we talked about it a little bit. So yeah, I know what you mean by Percy Jackson. Okay, I see that no one has joined in the past maybe 2 minutes. So I think we're gonna go ahead and start with the Kahoot. True or false? Only bad souls go to the underworld. And just a reminder, the faster you answer the question, the more points you get. Yeah, exactly. I think I mentioned it a few times, rather a lot. So I'm glad you guys understood that not only bad souls go to the underworld. Okay, next question. Charon is the ferryman for which river? Yeah, it is the Styx. I see a lot of people did blue. Blue is wrongly spelled. The river that actually correct is the Styx and not the Stinks. I don't know how you pronounce it. Okay, the next question. What is peculiar about the Lethe River? Yeah, so if you drink from it, you forget your mortal life. Oh, sorry, I think I made a grammar mistake. It's supposed to be life, sorry. Where do the heroic souls go? So not the good souls, well, heroic souls are good souls, not the normal souls, but the good, heroic, brave souls. Yeah, it is the Elysian Fields. Okay, so true or false? The three judges choose in which part of the underworld the souls will remain for eternity. Yeah, that is true. Which one of these is the one who was punished to push a boulder up a mountain without ever making it? Is it Sisyphus, Orpheus, Ixion, or Tantalus? Yeah, that is Sisyphus. So which one of these is the one who was punished to be attached to a fiery wheel spinning eternally? Sisyphus, Orpheus, Ixion, or Tantalus? Yeah, it is Ixion. All of you got it right, so that's good. So, true or false? Orpheus fed honey cakes to Cerberus to enter the underworld. That is false. The honey cakes is another story. The honey cakes is Persephone's myth that we talked about last class, and how Orpheus got to enter the underworld was he used his lyre to play beautiful music, and he sang also. Okay, so last question. Oh, maybe, yeah, last question. Did Orpheus look back to see if Eurydice was behind him? This is a rather easy question. Was just to see if you guys followed through the video. Yeah, he did, and that's why Eurydice was sent to the underworld forever and never come back. So on the podium, in third place is Aaron. Good job. And second place is someone named Peep. I think that's like a nickname. So. And in first place is somebody whose nickname is Wait For Me. And our runners up are Annabelle. Good job. This is your first class. And I think it was like Myth or something. That's also good. So good job, everyone. In 1 minute will be your next class with, who was it with again? I saw. Well, on animals, yeah, sorry. And Kaden, yes, exactly. So it is 15, so you guys, so I'll see you next week. We're gonna talk about heroes and their myths. Okay.